Aloha. Welcome to American Issues Take One. I'm Tim Apicella, your host, and today's title is Pay to Play, the Oval Office Way. The Foreign Emoluments Clause, Article 1, Section 9, Clause 8 of the U.S. Constitution prohibits the federal officials from accepting gifts, compensation, titles, or any other benefit from foreign governments without the consent of Congress. Why is this part of our Constitution? To avoid foreign influence. Let's fast forward to the headlines of the day. Donald Trump and the gift from Qatar, a $400 million airplane. We had this in his first term, where Donald Trump was accused of violating the law because he was charging exorbitant rates for his hotels to foreign dignitaries, the Secret Service, and to charge exorbitant rates to stay at his golf courses. That was investigated and really nothing came of it. So here we are today. New York Times, David Wyckoff has written an article basically outlining some of the schemes that Donald Trump and his families are involved with. I won't go into every detail, but I could say this. We have one where it's a meme coin. It has no function, but it has value by the number of people who are investing in it. This is called it's designated by $Trump. The other one is by a World Liberty Fund, where $2 billion from the United Arab Emirates has just invested. It functions almost like a bank, and the family gets the yield from all those deposits. Then there's a third one called World Liberty Finance Stablecoin, where the price of this cryptocurrency doesn't fluctuate. It's fixed at $1, but there's plenty of money to be had. And last but not least, a brand new club called CIC Digital LLC, where it's basically an auction for would-be investors or influencers to gain access to meet the president and perhaps tour the White House or one of his clubs. So to discuss these money-making schemes, I have with me my esteemed guests. I have Chuck Crumpton, a mediator for a long time here in Hawaii. I have Ben Davis, professor of the University of Toledo. And I have David Larson, professor of law at Mitchell Hamlin School. And of course, my co-host, Jay Fidell. Jay, to you. I'm going to give you a quote and see if you can guess who gave it. I would be a stupid person to turn down a $400 million plane.
That's Trump.
That's
Trump.
I should let you answer. Yes, I should let you answer. I thought it was obvious. Anyway, did Donald Trump just confess he's open for business for bribes and gifts? Or is it no big deal, like Justice Thomas of the Supreme Court accepting all these gifts and nothing to become of it? What's your take on the plane and the gift from Qatar to Donald Trump?
Clearly a violation of the Emoluments Clause, the plane. And some say it's 400 million, others say it's 500 million. And a number of people, including an article in yesterday's paper, say that it's going to cost 200 million to, retrofit it so it has the necessary equipment for a president, which of course is gold lame all through, So, okay, well, that is clearly a violation, and a lot of commentators have stepped forward on that. What is remarkable, Tim, is that the Attorney General of the United States thinks it's just fine. And if anybody here knows on what basis she thinks it's just fine, I would like to hear the legal analysis on which she thinks it's just fine. But, this is going over the top. He's been, doing all this personal business stuff, using and abusing the presidency of the United States. And your thing about cryptocurrency is only one part of it, in which he has already made a lot of money, maybe billions, and tried to stoke the market so that he can play the market and, make all that money. But it's not only that, it's the merch that he sells. It's everything and anything. It is very creative. And my reaction, and I'll leave it to you other guys to, put in the details, but my reaction is, how in the world does Trump have enough time in a given day to do all these side businesses and supervise Jared, who got $2 billion from the Saudis, and make all these deals, leading to money in his pocket, and at the same time run the country. Can he do a decent job at running the country if he's busy all day with these disgusting side deals? It's just a question.
Yeah. Well, let me just follow up before I go to Ben. Jay, what happened in the first term with the investigations that took place, particularly him charging, like I said, 10 times the rack rate of his hotels to foreign dignitaries that were happy to pay it because that bought influence, and certainly when he was charging our own Secret Service to stay at his hotels, much, much more than the published rate, or the rack rate, sometimes you call it. What do you think happened to those investigations? I don't think they went anywhere.
No, they didn't go anywhere, and we all knew about it. We all saw it in the newspaper a number of times, both of those scams using the hotels. And at the end of the day, it went into his pocket. Aside from selling influence, it went into his pocket. Aside from stroking the Secret Service, it went into his pocket. And we all knew it, but nothing happened. I don't know why nothing happened during the Biden administration either, because he could have caught up with it, couldn't he?
I think the reason that they were dropped is because his term ended, and the feeling was that the argument was that the questions were moot.
Okay.
Whether you're persuaded by that or not, that was the explanation.
I'm not persuaded because it happened, and there are agencies out there that are supposed to, follow suit on these things, and they haven't. And so, in a word, he got away with everything he did in the first term. He got away with it.
I will interject that in 2002, there was the Protecting Our Democracy Act, which is to eliminate all profit towards the president. The idea was that, they were largely ineffective to stop him from doing it. And that bill in 2022 was killed thanks to a filibuster. So I think there was an attempt to try to fix things. It just wasn't successful. Okay, thank you, Jay. Appreciate it. Ben, with all this money going to Trump's family, and again, this bill that was introduced in 2022 was to require all assets of the president to go into a blind trust. Where are we as far as as a nation trying to prevent our president from getting rich, fat, and happy from foreign entities?
Where we're at is we've got a president that is, as I saw Judge Ludwig say recently, done 15 or 20 things since he's come into office that are completely unconstitutional, and the money is just another one under the emoluments clause. So that's where we're at, and since no one wants to stand in his way, although I think that there are people who will try, like Crew, to bring cases about these things.
Ben, can I jump in?
Yeah.
There are a lot of people in Congress who support him because they are also benefiting. For example, they're doing inside trading on issues and stock in the American stock exchanges, maybe the foreign stock exchanges too. And they're also on the cryptocurrency trail, and they follow him. So they're not likely to criticize him if they're doing the same thing and making money in the same disgusting way.
Yeah, and efforts to say, pass bills that say Congress people cannot trade while they're in office, those die also. So, given all of that, with regard to the emoluments clause and the foreign stuff, there's two levels. One is the ones that we know of, right? Let's say there's some investment fund from Saudi Arabia, but whose money is in the investment fund from Saudi Arabia? We presume it's Saudi Arabian oil money, right? It doesn't have to be. It could be Putin's money. We don't know who is it. It's a wonderful money laundering scheme for anybody out there. And since they're not going after foreign corrupt practices or kleptocracy in the Department of Justice, it's wide open. So, just got to keep in mind that we're talking about huge flows. I think there was talk from MBS that, there's a pledge of $600 billion to be invested in the United States over the next 10 years. Do you think that $600 billion is coming out of Saudi Arabia? I mean, I hear that their GDP is 1 trillion. So how are you going to get to 600 billion of their 1 trillion? You know what I mean?
Ben, let me ask you: the 600 and some reporters have reported it at more like a trillion. Where is it going? Where is it going to get invested? It's going to get invested where Trump wants it to get invested, and some of that is going to line his pockets.
Oh yeah, and one of the things about the lining the pockets that I just would like to say, which is, I understood that the job of President of the United States was a 24-hour job, right? So whenever you're in your pajamas or you have on your bathrobe and it has pockets in it, or you have on some pants, or you have on a jacket with some pockets in it, you're on duty, right? So if anything goes into those pockets, that's U.S. stuff. It's not his personal stuff. Like, for example, let's talk about this magnificent $400 million plane, right? What are they trying to do? The get around is so wonderful. We give it to the Defense Department. So technically, it's not given to the president, right? It's not given to him, right? And then afterward, it's given to his foundation. So it's not given to him. You see what I'm saying? This is the kind of money laundering that they're doing, or bribe laundering that they're trying to do using the Defense Department. And that is the argument, I think, that dear old Attorney General Bondi went with, to say it's okay. And, folks, we all can look at this, and especially look at this and look at Congress, and we smell the corruption. The stink is so high heaven here, right? The ordinary Americans would smell it. Now, maybe a bunch of ordinary Americans are like, man, I wish I could get a piece of that action too, right? I mean, I understand that feeling. But the point is that it is such enormous corruption that we should have no illusion about it. And when he just had an interview where he said, oh, he's only going to use the plane while he's in office like every other president. No, it's going to his foundation afterward. So he's going to use it afterward. I mean, people listen to this stuff and they, it's absurd.
I would interject that, Boeing received a contract to come up with a new Air Force One. Building planes of that type take a long time. Donald Trump is not a patient man. Okay, so if he gets this plane, or the Department of Defense, it's going to take years, 2 to 3 years, before it's ready with all its unique capabilities to protect the president while he's in the air. So it's a moot point. All it is, I think your point is well taken. All it is a free plane for his library.
And the thing, I just saw that there was a pledge of $200 billion of orders from Qatar to Boeing, right? So we're going to throw a lot of money at Boeing, and Boeing's going to be a happy camper, right? They're going to be, they'll do anything for anybody because of that, right? And so, it's just, it stinks so high to high heaven. And the thing about it is he doesn't really care. He doesn't really care. And a lot of people who think that it's great to make money this way don't really care in this country. And that's the saddest part of it, because people won't say, no, this is not acceptable. This is not acceptable. Not enough of them, and not enough of them with power. That's the thing. It's sick. It's sick.
All right. Okay, thank you very much, Ben. Hey, Chuck, do all these gifts, I'll call them gifts, investment fund contributions, deposits, whatever you want to call them, that are going around the executive office, but in many ways through the executive office. Can this sort of activity be stopped? I mean, they tried in 2022, the Protection Our Democracy Act. It failed. Assets are not put in a blind trust for the president. How can we stop this?
Well, I think you first got to ask the question, who's going to stop it? If Congress is not doing anything because it's Republican control, then the only entity left is the courts, right? But the head of the Department of Justice was getting $115,000 a month to lobby for Qatar. So of course she's going to rubber stamp the plane deal. They should probably get to ride on it as a result. Who's the who? Who's going to stop this?
Yeah, I think that's the sad part of it. And not only that, but when you go to the highest court of the land, you see a couple of Supreme Court justices making their own side deals with friends and neighbors. Doesn't send a strong signal to the American people that the U.S. government's not for sale.
we can pretty much be confident that Justices Thomas and Alito will wind up on that plane at some point.
Good point. All right. Thanks, Chuck. David, our policymaking, independent policymaking, is that at risk given all these gifts and influences coming Donald Trump's way? Or is it just our imaginations that say, oh, well, you guys are reading too much into this, and Donald Trump is working for the American public, and he certainly could not be swayed by a mere jet or any kind of cryptocurrency deposits in his family's account?
I'd suggest that, thinking of imagination, that the things happening probably are beyond the imagination of many of us, even as recently as a year ago. We just couldn't imagine what's going on. We started talking about the plane. Plane's 13 years old. It's not a brand new plane, but still an expensive plane. It's outfitted like a palace. It's not a working environment. That was the idea of Air Force One, that you could actually do some work up there, have conference rooms and boardrooms. This has bedrooms instead of that. It's coming from a foreign government, so you're going to have to disassemble the entire plane to see whether or not there's any embedded listening devices. That will take several $100 million and another couple of years. So yeah, it's this president is very transactional. There's no context. There's no idea of, there's ethical responsibilities or obligations. I got a chance to get a free plane, so I'm going to take a free plane. Who wouldn't take a free plane? Without any kind of recognition that there's concerns about obligations to the giver of that gift, and expectations that that gift's going to be repaid one way or another. So that's really troubling. So the question is, how can this be going on? Well, we've talked about it a little bit. We've got a Congress that just isn't willing to step up and do what it's supposed to do. I mean, it's very simple, as Tim said in the beginning, in the emoluments clause, that you can't accept gifts unless there's the exception, unless there's consent of Congress. That doesn't exist here. Is silence consent? I guess that's one argument, that if Congress doesn't object, I guess that's the same as consent, which it isn't, because the Constitution says you have to give consent. But maybe that's the argument they're going with. But how can this be going on? Well, one way it could be happening is that Trump is attacking and tearing down a lot of things. We've got a tax bill that is eviscerating Medicaid. So people, and we're talking like 70 million people that are dependent on Medicaid now suddenly are forced to focus on Medicaid. What's happening with Medicaid? Emoluments, I don't know what's going on with emoluments, but I got to focus on Medicaid. I'm going to lose my Medicaid. The EPA announced that it's going to eliminate a number of protections from PFAS, from polyfluoroalkyls in water. So if you drink water in America, you're thinking about, oh no, I'm now going to be exposed to cancer in my drinking water. So, and I'm drinking water every day. I got to worry about that. Trump has put on executive orders saying that when it comes to employment discrimination, we no longer are going to use disparate impact liability theory, which is the theory that says if you've got a neutral practice that has a disproportionate effect on a protected group, that practice can be challenged. If you have an accounting firm and say you won't hire anybody that's not 6'5" or over because you have an interleague basketball team that you win every year in the city, you're going to exclude more women than men. On its face, it's not discriminatory, just says 6'5", but it has a discriminatory effect. That's going to have to eliminate the use of that theory of liability is going to permit so many people to run around the anti-discrimination laws, to implement rules that they know will have a discriminatory effect, but literally on their face are not discriminatory. That's got a lot of people focused and concerned. So we got people, and that's just three of them. We got a lot, millions of people worrying about disparate impact liability, millions worried about the water they're drinking tomorrow. You got millions worrying about Medicaid. So we hear this word emoluments, but it's like, I wish I had the time to worry about that, but I got to worry about these other things.
And that is the question. I think a lot of Americans are starting to catch on about distractions. We've been talking about it for 8 years. the Heritage Plan 2025 had everything that Donald Trump's doing pretty much was lined out in 2025 plan. And the question is this just yet another throw it against the wall and distract the American public? It's too much for them to mentally handle. It's too much. It's overload. And that's why I'll get away with it, because the justice system can't handle all the illegal activity and all the attempt to put injunctions on all my executive orders. And so that's why I could come out in the open and openly take a $400 million jet. Is it just too much for the American public to handle it? And I think you're suggesting that.
Yeah, I think that's the strategy, to make it too much for the American people to handle. But some of these things will come back and bite you in the derriere. So if you're a Republican congressperson and you're not exercising your constitutional obligation to make sure that any gifts being given are not problematic, you're not doing that, but you are going to run for re-election in November 2026, and you're in a red state, and we know statistically that when you cut Medicaid, it's really going to hurt those red states much more than the blue states. That's a fact. So now you're going to run for re-election. You're going to have to explain why you did not protest the cuts to Medicaid while you permitted the president to take home a $400 million luxury gift. I think some of these things will come back and begin to trap the Republicans, and those who are looking forward may actually say, this time I've got to exercise my consent and prevent this gift, because I'm going to have to defend the fact I'm taking Medicare away from all of my constituents. Louisiana, the Speaker's state, as Speaker of the House of State, Johnson, has the highest percentage of Medicaid recipients in the country. So at some point or another, Johnson's going to have to explain how to justify taking away all those benefits from those Medicaid recipients, while at the same time allowing perhaps $400 million plain gift and then massive tax cuts in this recent tax bill to the very wealthiest Americans.
All righty. Thank you. Then back to you. This trip to Saudi Arabia, it was suggested by both you and Jay that how do we know what's even going on? Remember the days where the president always had someone to take notes during these foreign diplomatic meetings? I don't know where those people are anymore. Maybe they're there, but I don't know if the reporters and the media are getting the notes that are taken from these meetings. How do we know that the business of America is being conducted versus the business of Donald Trump? Or do we know? And does it matter anymore?
It does matter a great deal, because America does have interest in business that is American business, that's not tied to the interest of money of Donald Trump, or for that matter, anybody else in government. Okay. But yes, the readouts of various meetings tend to not happen, or if they happen, they're in such pablum that, you really don't know what's going there. I remember so many times there have been these occasions when Donald Trump's had a meeting and the readout you want to read is from the country that he's meeting with, because the American one is just so bland in terms of whatever happened. So that's one part of this. We don't know. Okay. The other part that I would just say is that the three countries that he's going to, as I think it was Adam Smith said, why is he going there? Adam Schiff said last night, why is he going to those countries? He said, well, like Willie Loman said, that's where the money is. That's why he's starting there. That's like he did last time around, And it really was brought home to me is when the new head of Syria at one point, maybe 3-4 days ago, said, we should open up a Trump Damascus, right? And then like a day or two later, Trump is meeting with the guy and he's talking about lifting sanctions for Syria. Now, I'm not saying that lifting sanctions for Syria is a bad thing. I don't know, as a matter of, geopolitics and all that stuff. But what I do know is it sure looks like a guy said, hey, I'll let you build a hotel in my town. And Trump said, okay, for the United States, we're going to open up everything for you. And, that kind of doubt in your head or maybe at this point we really don't have a doubt, is something that is really, really problematic for the United States. It really is, because we just can't know what is for him and what is for America.
Mm-hmm. All right. Jay, with all this cryptocurrency, we know there's not a lot of big paper trails regarding transactions. We don't know what kind of contributions Donald Trump or his family are getting or not getting. I have a sense that there's a big question mark to everything that Donald Trump's involved with. The question is, am I just being paranoid, or do we have a sense? Let me go back to what Ben said. I mean, we have to rely on foreign media to find out what our own president of the United States is doing during a foreign visit, because our notes aren't very, very descriptive of what's going on. You said this in many shows before, is that how will we know what's going on? We won't. And I feel like we're at that point. I guess the question is, how do we know how much Donald Trump is earning off of all these schemes? And there's no one to really dig hard enough to find out what's going on. Is this a runaway train of graft and profit making?
Indeed. To go back to your initial point, he's making money on the cryptocurrency. I mentioned in an earlier show that he was against it until last June, when he realized that he could get control of it and get some money for his campaign. And then all of a sudden, 180 degrees, now he supports cryptocurrency. And in fact, he's manipulating the price. Buy now. And, and then him and his family and his friends and how many congressmen I couldn't say are all capitalizing on the swings in that market. And no question about it, he's making money. It's a big source of money. It may be billions for him and others around him. So it's a great way to pass off value. But I want to go to a point you mentioned, both you and Ben mentioned, and that is we have to see the outlines here. Yes, he's trying to keep everything secret. And that the secrecy is becoming real. There was an article by David Sanger in the Times yesterday, which I posted on the Daily Advisory, the ThinkTech Daily Advisory. And it's that people around the world are getting the idea of who Trump is and his negotiating style. And he starts out high, like tariffs on China, and then next time you look, it's at 30%. And Sanger caught him on that. And I think we should all catch him on that. He starts out high and he settles cheap. And I think we're going to see that in terms of the economic benefits that he's getting. For example, think about it. Not only is he making money on all these deals, and I'm suspicious of every deal. I'm suspicious of the Riviera deal. I'm suspicious of the pure earth, the valuable earth deal in Ukraine, and he's trying to do that in Africa too. I'm suspicious of the Syria deal that Ben mentioned. I'm suspicious of everything that happens in Saudi Arabia and Qatar, because I think that Trump is really, job number one is to become the richest man in the universe. And all of these deals smell. Watch out. I mean, he's going to have a hotel in Moscow. I guarantee it. So, that on the one side, but on the other side, the outlines emerge. What he's doing is destroying the government and distracting us in the process. And then at the same time, he's going to give us tax reform. I believe that tax reform won't come close to compensating for the destruction he's doing of the government. I also believe, as all you guys have said, that people are going to find out that it's not a straight line, and in fact, he's damaging the government and he's damaging the country, and they're going to realize, that their town in Louisiana, Mississippi, don't get any Medicaid. But I guarantee this. It's consistent with the Sanger article. At the last minute, before the election, the midterm elections, he's going to offer these people some kind of bone. He's going to send them some kind of benefit. Who knows what? And they're gonna buy that. They can say, "Oh, yeah, okay. I know he destroyed Medicaid, but you know what? He's okay because he's giving us this and that." And if you look at the moves he makes, you see that all the time. Do something really awful, and then some penny ante, counter benefit. And that has happened a number of times in the past few weeks, even. So I think what we have here is a negotiation with the American people. He distracts us from the fact that he's picking our pockets. At the same time, he's taking away so many things, so many benefits. And then at the last minute, at an appropriate timed interval, he will give us some fraction, and that will be his negotiation. Watch what happens. The outline is emerging, and we, of all groups, of all discussion groups I can think of, we can connect those dots.
Chuck, let's go to the idea about Congress. There's an old thought, graft begets graft. We know for years there have been bills trying to eliminate insider trading between congressmen, and Nancy Pelosi is right at the top of preventing that from happening. So we're not talking about Republicans, we're talking about the House Speaker. The question is this: how can we expect to stop Donald Trump from setting up his own deals, schemes of graft, when almost every congressman has access to insider trader information and they trade upon it? You look at the Dow that swung 4,000 points based on what Donald Trump said in some podium briefing. How do we know that that wasn't rigged, that people on the inside knew that he was going to say these things before the market did, and they traded upon it? I think Adam Schiff wanted to investigate that very thing. So do you agree, or, what's your thoughts about trying to stop the insider trading for congressmen and start there first and then try to hit the attempt that happened in 2022 about putting assets in a blind trust for the President of the United States?
Well, your question basically answers itself, because if you've got a totally corrupt head, then where's the rest of the body going to go when the brain sends the signal, assuming there is one? But follow the corruption model, follow the money. Get as much as you can while you can, and then get out of there. Trump knows he's not going to get another term as president, but if he can set it up so that his family businesses have billions of dollars coming in on a regular, reliable basis through Jared and Don Jr. and whoever, through his executive club with $500,000 memberships, through Mar-a-Lago, through his hotels, through other things, why should anyone do anything different? Look at Attorney General Bondi. She was rewarded for $115,000 a month lobbyist for Qatar by being given the head of the Department of Justice, and then, to use his own word, weaponizing it against anybody he chooses to victimize, whether it's student protesters or opposing Congress people or Milwaukee judge, whoever it may be.
Mm-hmm.
Who and what's to stop him? I think the who is still the big question.
The question. Well, I guess I go to the point that it's not just Republicans who are making money while they're in office. And again, I'll bring up the name of Nancy Pelosi. She's right up there trying to preserve a corrupted system of getting information about corporations in these committee meetings and then trading upon it. And it's not just Nancy Pelosi, it's other Democrats too. So if you're an American, I guess I would be dismayed. I would be horribly turned off by politics because everyone's getting fat, rich, and happy. Do any of these go to the Supreme Court in challenges against this type of practice? Do they make their way up through the federal courts and then ultimately the Supreme Court, or is that just wishful thinking?
Well, your point earlier, and Chuck's point earlier, who's going to do that? You think Pam Bondi is going to make that lawsuit? No way. So it has to be somebody else. And who exactly is qualified? Who exactly has the standing to sue the government for corruption? You'd have to find standing before you could go there. And if you went there, Clarence Thomas is not going to be helpful.
Yeah, okay, that's true. Clarence Thomas will not be helpful. Hey, we're almost out of time. So, David, I want to go to you with the last question. And that is maybe the same question I just ask Chuck, and that is, how can we stop this gravy train for those in the House of Representatives, this gravy train for those in the Senate, and certainly this gravy train for the President of the United States? Is there any light at the end of the tunnel for this, or is it just an accepted way of how our government does business for themselves?
I can't be hopeless. That's not my personality. On the one hand, I'm not sure I want this going to the Supreme Court, maybe to a federal district court or to the Court of Appeals. But I'm not sure I want these questions going to the U.S. Supreme Court. When you talk about doing appellate litigation, you want to pick your cases. And,
right.
Any case that is supportive of Trump's efforts to enrich himself probably will be viewed favorably at the U.S. Supreme Court level, unfortunately. So I'm not sure I want the cases going to the U.S. Supreme Court. That doesn't say I don't want cases going to court, because things take a while to get to the U.S. Supreme Court. I think right now courts may be our last bastion, because Congress isn't doing what it's supposed to do. I mean, the Emoluments Clause couldn't be clearer that you can't accept these gifts without consent of Congress, and they're not consenting, and he's still accepting gifts, and they're not doing anything about it. So seems that courts are our last refuge. But the midterm elections are a year and a half away. Congress the Republicans don't have a large majority. It's a pretty tight case, a tight majority in the House of Representatives. And I think one thing we need to do is focus on a lot of close races around the country. And I've mentioned before, one thing I'm doing, and I don't have the resources to change any election, but I'm donating to candidates all over the country in small amounts just to raise the numbers that they can say, I've got so many people supporting my campaign. There's lots of districts where Republicans won by 2%, 3%, 1%, that could be flipped fairly easy. So I'm hopeful that maybe in the midterms, we can reclaim majority in the House of Representatives. But then on the other hand, we got to last 18 months. And I think in those 18 months, there's only two things we can do is rely on the courts, number one, and number two, to the degree we can, shine spotlights on what's going on. Protest, try to keep educating, try to keep informing. Don't be quiet. I think that's incumbent on all of us to do the kind of thing we're doing today. Do it in different outlets and media form in different places, but try and shine the light on what's happening, because a lot of people still don't really understand what's happening. So that is something we can do.
Okay, well, good points. And I always know that when you shine a light on a floor and there's cockroaches there, they scamper. All right, so we have run out of time. I'm going to go around the table here very quickly. Ben, your last thoughts.
Oh, my last thoughts are just that there is possibly, if there's some creative lawyering, I don't know exactly how to do it, but the logic is that it would be the states that would be the ones who would have some way of bringing a case, or members of Congress. But again, I haven't thought of the particular case, but it would be one of those types of governmental entities that would be the ones who would be able to potentially bring a case that would go up. So just keep them in mind. And the double security of the rights of the people, as Madison would say.
Righty. Thank you, Ben. Chuck, to you.
Couple of things. One is the old be careful what you wish for. It may well be that in 2026 and 2028, their mantra of waste, fraud, and abuse comes back around to them, because essentially people are going to figure out they're punishing the beneficiaries for the worst kind of waste, fraud, and abuse, which is corruption itself.
Great point. David.
Don't throw your hands up in the air.
Okay.
As overwhelming and discouraging and disappointing things can be, don't accept it as hopeless. Don't say there's nothing I can do. Always try to do something. Try and talk to somebody. Try and influence your representative. Try and educate people around you as to what's really happening. But don't just throw your hands up in the air and say, I give up.
Great advice. I love having optimists on this panel. Thank you. Jay, you get the final word today.
Well, I want to extend Ben's point. There must be something that can be done. Maybe there's a way to develop standing against somebody in Congress for being corrupt. There are statutes. I don't know what they say, but maybe there's a standing possibility there, and certainly in state and local cases. And I would add that this is sort of like the way you attack the larger problem is you attack incidences of that problem on a smaller basis. In other words, if every congressman who was double dealing could be sued, and every local legislator who was double dealing could be sued, the message would get out there. And although we may not be able to stop Trump in what he's doing, at least the issue would be public, and there's a benefit there somehow. The second point I want to make is that this isn't over. We can complain, and the press complains about the jet and about all these other things, and we have a series of articles and complaints about Trump's deceptions and his corruptions, and that's good. But he's successful at it. He's doing it right now. And he's going to keep on doing it. And to the extent that he is permitted somehow to keep on doing it, that emboldens him. He's a story of being emboldened. So between now and the midterms, I can see Trump doing more of this. And again, not telling us. And I think one of the big, guardrails here is the media. But he's said, and he's actually done some attacks on the media. So to the extent that the media catches him, to the extent that the media, plays out this issue, he's going to be attacking the media. So I think we can expect he's going to do it some more, lots more, secretly, and he's going to attack the media for raising it. And I am not nearly as optimistic as David. I'm sorry, David.
It's okay. That's why we have wide-ranging opinions and viewpoints. Speaking of that, I'd like to thank those viewpoints from our guests, our esteemed guests, Ben Davis, Chuck Crumpton, David Larson. Thank you for your observations. Thank you for your viewpoints. That's what makes this show interesting. And of course, thank you, Jay Fidell, for co-hosting. I'm Tim Apicella, the host for American Issues Take One. And why don't you join us next week? And until then, aloha.